Welcome in, everyone, to the Countersin podcast. Thanks for joining us again. We are episode 48. We're into episode 48. My name is Matt Lacey. I'm joined, as always, by Harry Sermon.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Afternoon.
Hello,
good morning.
Wherever you are. And Jamie Joyner.
Good evening. Hello.
Hi, Dave. How are you, man?
Wherever
Okay?
you are in the world, all our international listeners.
Yeah, we've got a few international listeners. It's exciting times. So this is episode 48, where we've been on here just catching up because we've had a busy couple of weeks. We've just pretty much done a podcast that we didn't record.
One will ever hear.
That no one will ever hear, which was... that was good fun, good chat.
And why I hear you ask? Because we want to stay in our bands.
Yeah, we want
keep our jobs.
We want to continue working. Let's. So yeah, we hope everyone's out there as well, and thank you for the comments we've had and kind of interaction we've had with what we've put out on Instagram. Which is, as you probably all know by now, Count Us In Podcast. You can catch up with us there. Please follow and like and etc. etc. That'd be good to see you join us over there. Thank you for that. So should we get stuck in, lads? We're going to just quickly talk before we get into the main topic. We know we always try and do a little kind of bit at the beginning on something new. So I think we've got an update from you two at least, guys, on any new stuff or happenings since we last chatted. We'll just rattle through this.
I can see Jay's right in the back above his shoulder.
Yeah, Jamie. For those watching on YouTube, it's over Jay's shoulder. But Jay,
you can't quite make out what it is, but yeah, mine's a little tune bot. Which I've acquired recently. A buddy of mine, shout out, Jai Patel, has sorted me out. I know he listens into the podcast, so hey Jai, if you're listening, he sort of set me up with that, and I'm really looking forward to getting in a room, and particularly with all of my snares. I would just want to go in and like take all the heads off and then put them all back on. And kind of really mess with a range with all of them and just find like a really nice sweet spot. And yeah, while I was not in the market to buy a tune bot, I was kind of figured like, actually it'll be really good to just sort of play with and just really ensure that, the drum's in tune with itself. And maybe if I can just like learn a little bit more about the finer adjustments and how that affects the sound and stuff, that would just be really good. It's just in my head, it's like a long term, this will be great, just sort of like whatever kits I have in and out over the years, hopefully not that many in and out, but yeah, it'll just it'll be useful either way. So yeah, that's my exciting little thing to play with.
Yeah, I mean, you saw my message after you sent us a photo of it, Jay, didn't you? So we won't perhaps not mention that here. But yeah, all the best with that, Jay. There's my
cheers, Matt.
And Harry. New shiny stuff for you, H.
Yeah, I got I don't actually know if it's out yet. I won it in a competition. Snare weight, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with now. The little sort of, I think they were leather. They're now actually going vegan, so I don't think they're actual real leather anymore. The sort of leather snare dampeners, obviously, I think they were also first made famous by the sort of big brass block that you could put the inserts in and sort of customize and so on. They have a brand new model that they're releasing this year called the V1, which essentially, if you're familiar with their stuff, so they've got the M80, which is the sort of fairly long one that sort of covers 2-ish lugs, I would say. If you picture your floor tom, put it in the middle of 2 lugs, it pretty much covers that and then some. And there's probably people shouting at me and how many that is in inches and so on, but two of the turny things.
Is that
on
an 18-inch floor top or a 14-inch floor?
More specific, yeah. Die cast hoops or triple flange, So so they've got the M80 and then they've got the M1, which is like the smaller one, probably half of a lug size. My personal favourite. I know that we've all got a couple.
I've got one on my snare. Yeah.
I've got a couple. across snares and toms and so on. And it's basically an M1 shape with a weight on top of it, like a silver. I think it's an actual weight. It feels metal, doesn't feel plasticky. It's just a proper like weight on top of it. So it's kind of like a combination of the weighty block on top of an M1.
Yeah.
It's called the V1. They basically on New Year's Day posted saying, this is our new product for the year. First 25 people to comment will get it for free. And I just so happened to see it within like the first like minute or whatever it was up. Commented, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll send you one out." So got that
Have you
direct from
used
them
it?
from San Francisco. Yeah, it's actually lived on my also new Gretsch 6.5 14 by 6.5 Catalina snare, matte black, same finish as Jay's kit.
Oh yeah.
I'd swapped in my old Mapex snare drum for it at Dramatic. Shout out to Tristan, Dramatic, great shop in Froome. And I got a CS dot, Remo CS dot, which I've not used in 10 odd years. Put it on there and it's great. It's a wicked combo. So again, someone messaged me on Instagram, I forget who, so I apologise, but I don't think it's actually currently available in the country to buy, or actually available to buy from them. It's a little bit confusing.
Oh.
But yeah, it's really, really cool. I don't have it with me, unfortunately. I have.
Is it kind of like because you've got a BDC one, Matt, haven't you? That's like a metal.
Yeah, I did have. I use the M1 now.
Not use anymore. Oh, okay.
No, that was a magnet one with like sprung. It magnetised to the inside of the.
You still got it though.
I still got it, but I found it was just. I had a couple of songs I wanted to literally flick it off and flick it on, and it's on or off.
That's the beauty.
Yeah. Just the snare weight. You obviously with a magnet, pop it up, and it's good. Can you do that with this one, Harry, as well?
Yes,
can you
can.
flick it
and
up?
actually, it's got a bigger tie because with the other ones, it felt like, depending on which one you got, it was sometimes quite tricky to lift it up, and obviously maybe how they're sort of put together and cut, but it feels like the flip up and sort of magnet is so much stronger. This is for the YouTube watchers, this is the box that it came in. I don't know if you can see it well. That's what it looks like.
So it's like that with that metal on it.
Top,
yeah. So it covers
like a
most of
heavier
it.
M1 then.
And it's actually quite chunky. I mean, this is the sort of size of the packet it came into it, and it came out to there.
10
quite big.
10 mil thick. Yeah.
It's great.
So
V1.
That's probably the first review anywhere then of the Snareweight V1.
Shame I don't have it on me. Should have prepared more. Sorry.
No, it's great. So we've already mentioned Drum Dot. We've mentioned Dramatic. We've mentioned. So we're really name dropping this week.
I highly recommend it if you're looking for a dampening solution, and if you're wanting something a little bit heavier than the Snareweight stuff.
That's something I really like it. Done recently, haven't you, Matt? Yeah. Another dampening solution.
Oh yes, the sky gels you posted about recently. I know you.
I
what
got
about
those
your stuff?
Just jog my memory.
Yeah, quick. Yeah, thank you. Quick shout. So my quick new stuff. So I did post on the other day. I got some new in-ears. So I've gone with the KZ model. Yeah, you've got the same ones, haven't you? So there's the ZS10 Pros. I've not used them on a gig yet. I used them just in my teaching studio place, just to kind of put them on, just drive them at low volume, and they sound great. I bought a little extension cable as well for them because the actual cable on the in-ears is quite short. We were just discussing that before we came on, weren't we? So they're great. Not using them in anger. Still kind of fiddling with whether I've got the right size earbuds fitted to them, and just giving still, because they've been tightly wound, the cable just needs a bit of time to relax and start to feel a bit more settled on the ear, but they're really good. And the Sky Gels, I was put onto them by AJ because I won them in a raffle at Odyssey Camp, and I won 3 boxes of them. I mean, I've got more Sky Gels than a Sky Gel dealer. But yeah, I had an originals gig with my originals band. We had a kit share gig. We did a support slot on Saturday, and you never know what kind of kit you're going to get on a kit share. Wow, I turned up and it was a 1994 Premier Signia, and it was like beautiful. And I think he was running Remo pinstripes on it, I think. but yeah, it was great just to put one on the tom. I 22 kick, 12 up top, and a 16 floor. And I put my M80 on the floor tom because I always carry that on my snare and put it on anything rehearsal kit.
Yeah, nice.
I just put them all on my snare, and then whenever I get where I'm going, I take them off and put them where I want. And I use the Sky Gel just because I've got a boxing kit bag. Put Sky Gel on the rack tom, and yeah, great. Just took a little bit of that overtone off.
So are they kind of reusable? Obviously, I haven't had them for very long, but are they meant to be the sort of thing you like put back in a little box and then you just keep using? I know,
so
like
they come with two,
like Moon Gel and stuff. They like, over a period of time, like they just get a bit grim, and you kind
I
of
mean,
throw them away.
I use I specifically carry them for like backline kits and rehearsal kits, and I put one on, and yeah, it's not on there forever. It's on there for 2-3 hours at most. And it comes with like two little, imagine a Sky Gel sandwich, but instead of bread, you get two bits of cellophane or like plastic.
Yes,
Stuff.
Okay.
Like little plastic,
Flat
very
like
thin.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not flappy. They are quite firm, but they're thinner than a plectrum, if you know what I mean. And and I just put it back in between those two, and they're all in a little box together, different sizes. There's about 12 in a box. And it just stops them sticking to each other. And they've been great. So, I did post about them as well, actually. And AJ reached out and said, "Oh, how you finding them?" I said, "Yeah, they're really great." So that's been,
man.
Yeah, it's cool. It's all been good. So yeah, well, we've rattled through like
There you go.
6 new things in 8 minutes, and watch those endorsements flood in.
More snare weights than you can have snare drums.
More snare weights. Yeah. So that's all our new stuff. Well done, guys. That's nice to hear about new stuff. Let's get into. Say again.
We'll post some pictures, maybe.
Yeah. We'll get some pictures of all that stuff of our new bits and bobs. So I'll set the scene if you want, guys, for this week's topic. Kind of
main topic.
Cue the music. Is kind of upgrading your cymbals. So this came about from a conversation I had. So we're recording this on the 3rd of Feb, but I had a conversation with one of my students last week. It's Monday night now, so it's last Monday. He got a kit and he bought cymbals that came with it. So he's got the kit, the kind of cymbals that come in a package deal with his kit. And he was talking to me about he's got a Pearl Export kit with a silver wrap on it. And he'd said he'd seen the 14x14 floor tom available. And he was asking me to convince him that he needed a 14-inch floor tom. Now, I know we're talking about cymbals. Bear with me. And I said, well, you did have a 5-piece kit. You've got rid of your 10-inch tom. So now you're playing 1 up, 1 down. But now you want an extra floor tom to go back to a 5-piece kit, but 1 up, 2 down. And I happen to say off the cuff, to be honest, for the money you're spending on that floor tom, you might find that you might invest that money better in upgrading cymbals. And he's like, it's funny you should say that because I really don't get on with the sound of these hi-hats now. And no shade on the cymbals. They are, and I play Sabians, so I don't have a problem saying it, but they're Sabian SBRs. That came in a kit. They came as part of a package when he bought the drum kit. It was like thrown in with the deal or whatever. And it's kind of the conversation then took on another kind of direction where we talked about, and I think we've mentioned in other episodes, lads, where, talk about spending money on a drum kit, 300, 400, 500, 600, new kit for £600. There's no bad drum kits out there really when you get into that money.
Yeah.
And the point I made to him is, look, if you get a real world class player, you could buy a second hand kit for 350 quid, and you give it to a world class player, and you invest some money in top heads. That kit's going to sound really good being played by a great player. The difference with cymbals is, and yes, we can get into the nuance of how we hit cymbals and how we attack the hi-hat and how we wash or swish on a crash. There's certainly better or different ways to play a ride cymbal. And yes, you've got the different stick you could use, but you can't tune a cymbal. You're not going to affect the tone of it. The cymbal is what you get. So actually, in terms of sonic decisions that you're making, you probably got to be a bit more particular about what you want and what you're after, and be more aligned to the kind of music and more thought in terms of what you're going to use it for. And because he said, well, look, I mentioned some cymbal brands to him. I suggested he went and look on YouTube or whatever. He says, I just don't know where to start. And I thought, as I mentioned to you briefly at the time, lads, in a voice note, I thought it'd just be a really good episode to kind of just dig into people out there, or our thoughts, really. We're not here to advise anyone necessarily, but our thoughts on where to start with, upgrading our cymbals from the stuff that we got, quote unquote, the stuff that came with the first kit,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could rattle on this for 10 more minutes because I know the conversation I've had with Rich, my student, but, guys, where were you with your first cymbals, and what were the decisions? And I said to Rich, my student, I said, it's really interesting now that he's got into the mechanics of playing the drums, and he can play the drums, but now his ear is starting to go, he's not worried about playing the hi-hat. He's getting more tuned to what the hi-hat sounds like.
Yeah.
And it's that switch over from playing the drums to listening and what sound is it I want from my cymbals. So where did you guys start with early cymbals, and what were decisions about where you were going to go with stuff next? And maybe you've had similar student conversations. I'll throw it open to you guys.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, H?
I think I probably was a little bit. I think my sort of first choices were probably a little bit, well, like how I kind of got my first set of cymbals to like going to a pro level set of cymbals, if that kind of makes sense. And not to, I'm not going to bore everyone with the sort of backstory, but like essentially, as we all did, we all got whatever the cymbals were that came with the kit. I don't really remember what they are. They were just like your standard B8 kind of bronze cymbals, right? They just, none of them really sounded that good. I think I had a Crash Ride that sounded like somewhat okay. Kept them, but I then bought a whole set of Meinl HCS, I think is what they were called.
Yeah.
Got the hats, 2 Crashes, a Ride, and a China for some reason. And
of course you did.
I was like, yeah, cool. yeah, because why not? And then, I was like, cool. I have a full set of cymbals. They served me fine for like when I was, as you said, Matt, getting into being able to play the drums.
Yeah.
And then sort of time went on, and then I went to BIM, and then I basically, with my student loan, bought a load of Meinl Byzance stuff. So I just basically sold all that, and then just spent all my student loan and bought Benny Grebsan hats, a dual Crash, Mike Johnston's Ride, and the 20-inch Hammer Crash. I was like, cool, sorted, Terrible idea, because as lovely as those cymbals were, I just basically watched a load of videos on YouTube and was like, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. And they all worked for a sort of certain period of time, but really, in the same regard of like looking for that, the actual sound that I wanted was none of those cymbals. I liked the sound of those cymbals, but the sound I looked for and wanted, and all the players that I liked, was none of those cymbals. So essentially, I kind of wasted my money. I did sell them all and basically got all my money back, and then bought. I think I bought my 15-inch light hats and my K-Con medium thin, and I think Crash of Doom was what I got. And then that was like it. Then that was all I had for ages, and it did everything. But I definitely tried to, in the, not, when I got my Meinl HCSs, it didn't take a lot of sort of, research and YouTubing to sort of figure out, they sound like a cymbal. Because as you said, I wasn't really aware of, what's the difference between a Zildjian shiny one and a Sabian shiny one, and the ones that look like they've been buried in the garden. It's, Chad Smith's cymbals sound cool. They just sounded like good cymbals. They didn't sound like my cymbals, but they sounded like good cymbals. And then, I definitely spent a lot of time sort of researching the minor stuff and trying to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like, and what difference did the sandblasting make, and Mike Johnson's riders like lathed on the bottom but not on the top, and what does that do, and the hammer marks and the crash cymbal, how does that affect? Does that get the sound I'm looking for? Do I want a brilliant cymbal? Do I want a traditional cymbal? That's when I really kind of got stuck into it, and that definitely I think helps. But I totally agree that if you don't know any of that, like, where do you start on that sort of stuff? Now there probably are so many really good videos on to sort of walk you through really how a cymbal is made. But for me, I feel like I jumped a massive gap of like I didn't even go from like one like starter pack of cymbals to like an intermediate. I don't even know really what would like an intermediate pack of cymbals be. Like
you'd get like Zildjian wise, I guess it would be like some A's, Zildjian A's,
like A's, right? Yeah. And maybe like what's the Istanbul one they do now? Is it like Exist or something like that? Like that stuff's pretty good, isn't it?
The
Dream as well.
There's Dream cymbals. So there's the contacts from Dream, and then there's the Istanbul got exists. But then they do their traditionals as well, which are a little bit more.
So I kind of cut out like all of that and just kind of went straight to like the 400-pound hi-hats, which is really silly, really. But I mean, if you can, I would definitely advise someone just go and do that. If you love Chad Smith's hi-hat sounds and he plays the Paiste master hats or whatever, go and get them.
Go and buy them.
If you can, just go and buy them, because that will be the thing. But not, people, like you said, Matt, if I've got £700 to spend on a drum kit or whatever, people won't think, well, I can get, 5 drums instead of 2 cymbals that do that. That much better value for money. But actually, like you said, is it? Because my student's got a Gear for Music kit that has got 2. It's got Remo CS dots and an ambassador on it. It sounds bloody great with an EMAD on it. It sounds mega. And it's £100 Gear for Music kit that he bought secondhand. So cymbals, not so much. But
no.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent about my life there, but
Thanks, Harry.
Hope you enjoyed that. But don't.
Please come back to group therapy next week.
Thanks, guys. Jay, save me from the rabbit hole.
It's funny, like as you talking, I think my journey has been quite similar. In that I just started out with whatever cymbals came on the kit. My first kit was like in the church, so I would have to like go in the church and practice there. So it was whatever cymbals on that. And I think I ended up buying the drum kit off the church and just using that in my little, like room after a bit, and they got a new one. But it was like I think I had like 2 Paistes, like I think like Paiste Rude cymbals or something, maybe.
Nice.
Hi-hats like dude, that's so thick. And
about 4 kilos.
I was gonna say they're like
you have to
need
like
their own
wind the
car to
spring up, the
transport.
tension spring up on the hi-hat just to get them open.
And then maybe like a Zildjian ride or something like that. And then I think I was probably up till uni, used them, did all my grades on them. I didn't really think twice about it. I wanted a second crash, and that's when I bought my first cymbal. I was like, I just want to get a second crash. I didn't really know what crash or what sound or what size. I had 50 quid, and I went to the drum shop in Denmark Street at the time, and walked in and was like, I got 50 quid I've saved up. What crash can I buy?
Find me a crash, man.
And it was like a stag, something like sort of a brilliant finished 16-inch stag cymbal. I absolutely loved it. I played it once. I was like, this is incredible. It sounded, in my head way better than anything I had. And I had that set up maybe when I was about 16 or something. That was the only other cymbal I bought, but it wasn't anything to do with sound initially. And then same as you, Harry, when I got to uni, I spent all my student loan money on cymbals, and just went out and bought loads of A customs, but also some Ks, just like a real mix. Like I was at that point, I was into quite a lot of heavy music, and so that's kind of what a lot of like those sorts of bands were playing. And it was very like my uni friends as well. Like we were all just like raving about those cymbals, and we'd all go down Wembley Drum Centre and like try those cymbals. And I remember being in Wembley Drum Centre playing the heavy ride, Zildjian K heavy ride, and being like, this sounds incredible, and then like getting to the jazz unit. Excuse me, in uni, and trying to do like jazz rides on it, and being like, oh, this is not quite the kind of sound I'm after at the moment. I've just dropped like so much money on this. So yeah, I think after a while, I sort of started to think, oh, I need to figure out like what I like, and that took a long time. And I think I over the years, I've like probably a course of like 10, 15 years, sort of phased out those cymbals. I've kept a lot of them for like teaching and stuff. But yeah, I sort of ended up going more down like the K route. A lot of the music I certainly have played for the majority of my sort of time drumming has been like worship music, and they're a lot like thinner, washy, kind of quite quiet and dark cymbals. So I kind of naturally started getting into that sort of sound, rather than kind of, you know, like A customs and heavy rides and stuff like that. Just over. I even had an earth ride at one point, you know, like
wow.
I picked it up. No, it came with the first kit I bought after my beginner kit was like a Mapex Orion, and it like came with it. And it was just like a bin lid, you know, no sustain whatsoever. Yeah, it was hilarious. So I had a few like random stuff like that. A few chinas, mini chinas, little splashes, stuff like that. So I had
never
a whole
owned a
lot.
splash.
It's all just kind of been a bit of a long journey figuring out what it is I like. And I'd say I'm like 95% happy with what I have, and I'm just sort of getting the odd bit that kind of I feel like there are gaps that need filling. So
I'm never
it's
happy.
A good place to be. But then again, I have a feeling when I fill that gap, I'll be like, oh, and that could also do with one of these, and you know, and when I play with that band, it would be great if I had that, and you know,
because now you've filled that gap, you've actually generated two more gaps between the gap you've just filled and the one either side. You know, I need to fill that gap.
I'm sure everyone listening relates. But
it's a never-ending list.
It is interesting because I don't feel like you're talking about your students, like my students as well. They're very like, they're certainly the beginner ones. They don't have any real clue about it. Like when I recently acquired some cymbals, like really beginner cymbals, with a purchase I made on Marketplace, I decided to give some hi-hats to one of my students because he had. They were like, are they made of brass? Like they're like
the 8 ones are
really basic, like unbranded, like you can kind of bend them, you know.
I think so.
And it's like 10-inch maybe hi-hats that came with it, and it's they sound they're tiny. And I rocked up with these 14 inches.
Which is Spaven, I love those now.
Yeah, you can have a bit of fun with them, you know. But yeah, like my student had no clue that they were like not the right size or anything like that. I rocked up with these, like they were like Stag 14-inch hi-hats, and was like, let's try these. And he was like, oh, these are cool, but like, they're huge. I'm like, these are like small, you know. And
oh really?
and he loved it. Like he kind of got into it, but like he didn't really know that it was even an option, or that you could get better hi-hats, or you know, the ride could be upgraded, and you know. And to be fair, when you look at prices of things like hi-hats, you're like, why are hi-hats £450? And how much better are they than my little, you know, kind of 50, 80 quid ones that I've picked up off of eBay or whatever? I'm like, it's a good question. It doesn't stop me buying them, but it's a good question.
They just are.
Yeah.
They just are.
So it's I think it takes a while, or at least I've noticed it taking a while for most of my students to get to a point where they start seeking like a specific sound. It's normally, I think, if they listen to a lot of music or they're jamming a lot to it, and they, you know, I don't know, maybe they're into like Blink a lot, and they're like, oh, he's got this certain like snare sound or something, or like, I just want to like try and get my snare to sound like that or whatever. Occasionally I'll have a student say something like that, but generally I'd say like it's quite late in the game before they start doing that. How about you, Matt? What's your cymbal journey?
Well, I'm as always, I'm completely different, opposite to both of you, in terms of, because I was fortunate enough to not inherit, but and with my dad being a drummer, kind of what he had is what I used. It just so happened that he had a pair of 1962 Advis hi-hats. So
Yeah.
that were my first hi-hats. And he still plays them now. He's still got them. And I think he bought another pair, slightly heavier 15s, I think. And he had a Zildjian just with a stamp on it. This is, again, 1960s 18-inch Crash Ride.
Nice.
And it's just like in the day, he was playing jazz and he had hi-hats and an 18-inch Crash Ride. It wasn't called a Crash Ride. Crash Ride wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
It was it was an 18-inch cymbal that he could hit a bit harder than he wanted to sometimes. It was a ride cymbal. And he kind of sometimes treat himself, or he would get, because he knew I was playing. By the time I get to 11, 12, I was playing as well. And he bought a 16-inch Crash. It was an extra fast Crash. And I think it was Laser. I remember it Laser because the Z, I think it was Lazer, but the Z went like a big white line, like a bolt of lightning through the whole cymbal.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So that went top left straight away. And that was all I really had. And it was like, and I was gigging and I wanted, but I was playing in a cover band, but I was playing 1960s songs. So the cymbals I had, they were perfect because they were 1960s cymbals. Yeah. So it was, it just sounded okay. And then I think what happened, I started getting into playing like, rather than playing 1960s songs, and I started to play 70s rock. This is the 90s by now, so I'm playing cover versions of, and I got into Queen, and, I got into heavier music. And I'm kind of chunking away on these 14-inch Avis hi-hats thinking, I'm not really sure this is what I should be doing with these cymbals, a little bit. So I thought I need to go and get into some hi-hats. And I went to my drum teacher who had a shop as well. And he happened to be a Sabian dealer. Says, look, I'm after some here. I was playing in a 3-piece kind of heavy blues trio. And I said to him, I want some heavier hi-hats that I can really kind of play into. And he set 3 up for me. And I can't remember what, I think he set up, it was a pair of 13-inch Fusion AAs, which before I went down, I thought, I'm really going to go 13s, I think, because they're really crisp and really great. And then there was some AA... high 14-inch A's, and then some AAXs, and I tried the 13s, and like they just felt too sharp and too crisp. And if I was in that really kind of really fusion, if I was playing in fusion stuff, really crisp, really kind of really dry, really cutting, then that'd have been the stuff. Like you say, it's what are you going to be playing? What are you going to be using them for? So in the end, I went with the 14 AAXs because I felt like they were going to fit a bigger window. I could do more with them. You can slosh them, heavy stuff. I can play a Metallica cover in them, or I can play slow 6/8 blues, and and I still use them now. I've just recorded with them, last year now, but, and so that was kind of my introduction to Sabian, really. And then that 18-inch Crash Ride that I inherited or was using at my dad's, I was starting to use that as an out-and-out Crash. And I then thought I need something similar to this, but it's going to be up to the job. And then I bought a 19-inch AAX Explosion Crash. So I was basically what I was using was what my dad was having me to use, but I was basically just like replacing them one at a time and going from there. And because then I'd kind of got into Sabian, I started looking at Sabian online, and I came across Todd Zuckerman. I thought, well, he's playing Sabians and he's playing he's recording for artists at his home studio, and he's playing on massive stages with sticks. And I really liked his ride cymbal. And fair play, and I'm not sure whether I mentioned this in a previous episode, I DM'd Todd, this is going back a few years, and said, oh, what ride cymbal is that? And he says, oh, it's a 22-inch Sabian prototype. and I can't say anymore. At the minute, it's just a prototype. It's the only one. Now, obviously,
Right.
since then, this prototype cymbal has now become available. And at the drum show, when it was the last year, it was in Manchester. I went to the Sabian booth and said to him, "Oh, I really like Todd Suckerman's, but apparently it's not available because it's a prototype. What would you recommend is similar?" And the guy pointed me in the direction of the Raw Bell, the 21-inch HH Raw Bell dry ride. I tried it there at the show, and then a couple of months later, Sabian actually ran a deal where if you spent, I think, 360 quid, you got a free 16-inch AAX explosion crash. So I went to my PMT, local PMT. I said, because my mate was no longer a Sabian dealer at this point, the guy I went to. So I'd like one of those, please. And that's what I got, 2 for 1.
Nice. Yeah,
In the meantime, I'd already bought an AAX 18 and an AA 16 or an AAX 16. So yeah, so I went the full all in on the Sabian stuff, really. But I was picking sizes. I mean, you guys would not play a 16. I've got a 16-inch kind of AAX explosion crash, an AA crash, 18-inch AAX, the 19-inch I mentioned, the ride. I put a photo of it a while ago actually, and they seem to do everything I want them to do. So that was my kind of journey through all of that. Bearing in mind, I had 10 years off, where all of a sudden, cymbals are really expensive.
Yeah.
So that was kind of. But my thought was, as with my drum sizes and what I bought, it's I want something that's going to do as much as possible. Now I've started, I've been digging into the jazz properly over the last 5 years. I've now kind of got a separate setup for my jazz. I still think I will change my hi-hats at some point, but yeah, and I've gone a different direction. I've gone Istanbul Agot with those. So yeah, I think, you talked about Chad Smith's hats sound great. But if you're not playing in a Red Hot Chili Peppers tribute, or you're not playing that kind of funk rock stuff, is it the right, and they sound great because he's playing them, so it's. I would say
I had the dilemma when I went to get my 15 light hats. I also tried the 16s, and they sounded amazing, and I loved them. And part of me still regrets not getting them, but I was going from 14s to 15s. At the time, it felt like a bit of a big jump. And I just remember sort of feeling the confidence of like, I feel like I could get along with the 16s. Obviously, I do now because I play 16. But I felt like I would get along, but I just felt safe in the fact that I would know that the 15s would do the job no matter what I was playing.
Yeah.
They can be really, I know you've got the same ones, Jay, but like you can be really delicate with them. You can really lay into them. They've got a great chick. They've got clarity. They're not too bright. They don't really cut through and sort of get in the way of everything. They just sit like a hi-hat should.
Yeah.
And I just remember sort of in that, and like seeing like Nate Smith and people like that play them. Like Nate Smith played them and Alan Rubin played them. And it's like those are like two opposite ends of the spectrum. And I just felt really confident in like the fact that those two players played them. They sounded great in both situations. And I know that I wouldn't go wrong with them, Whereas the 16s at the time, I was a little bit like, they sound great, but I don't know, am I going to get like, are they going to get lost in, So I think,
riskier, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you definitely want, like you said, Matt, like you want to have confidence in that, what you're buying or what you're looking for is the sound that you're looking for, but not only that it does like a great job. I love the sound of like a really dry, flat ride. I'm never going to buy one because I don't have unless it goes in like, a practice room that I just go and play whatever I want in, fine. But in terms of like a practical application, it's got, no.
I've played a couple of flat rides in a jazz context when I've sat in at a jam or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't get on with them. I find them far too dry. And bear in mind, I've got a dry ride with a hammer. But there's no I would say nowhere to hide. It's like obviously says more about my
It's just
technique
sort of
than anything
stick.
else.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's
stick.
just it's that for me it's that dustbin lid thing which I really struggle to get over. But yeah, so I mean, I will be taking. I did forget this week because I've been running around, and I'm going to be taking some cymbals to my student's house for him to kind of compare and contrast. So I've got a Minor 18-inch Byzance medium thin crash, sorry, and I'll take a couple of my Sabians, and I might take an Istanbul Agop. But I think something I've always done when I bought cymbals is I've taken a cymbal I've already got to the shop with me to compare, because you know what your cymbals sound like in your bedroom, in your rehearsal space, in your studio, whatever. And then you go and try another cymbal in a massive shop, if you're lucky enough to go to a shop, which is surrounded by cymbals on a stand, surrounded by other drums in a far bigger space, with potentially guitars going on in the background if you're in a big shop like that, which got multi-instruments. And then, is that going to work with me? Is it going to work for me? So just take some kind of
take like a
context. I would take like a crash cymbal with me, that I know that wherever I am in any gig, I know what this crash is going to sound like. To reference, this is the ride. Is it a different manufacturer? Is it the same manufacturers but a different brand or different in the range? No.
I did the same for getting the light hats and the cake on when I went to get when I went back to get the Crash of Doom, because I was really unsure. I was like, I really like this. It's not, really bright. It's got kind of like stick definition. It can be, played as a ride, but it's a pretty out there cymbal. So I was really like concerned if it was going to fit. And I'm glad I took my ride, because I think had I played it on its own, I probably would have been like, this is really weird. But just sort of having the two next to each other and hearing them both as a crash and both as a ride, it was the context, like you said, Matt. It was, I mean, stark difference when we walked into Drum Depot, Jay, and they had the 22 light ride, and we just went, yeah, that'll do. I'll take that one. It's the opposite. But
I was looking to go. That's my dad did many years earlier. Go to like a single cymbal setup. It's easy for me to say for my jazz setup. So I thought I want some.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah,
just one ride. You mean
one ride? Yeah, it does everything. Yeah. And I was really toying with, and I tried it at a drum show. Now, funnily enough, the guy I used to deal with in PMT now works for Meinl, so he was on the Meinl stand, so I knew him. So Joe at Meinl, if you're out there, hi Joe. And I said, "Oh, could I have a look at that Foundry Reserve?" And I played the 20-inch Foundry Reserve light ride, and it sounded great. Oh, this is the one. I thought, I'm not doing the deal today. I'm not really 100%, but I'm not sure that I could buy it on the day. Actually, I can't remember. But I'll now I've heard one. I'll go and have a listen to one. See if I can find. Couldn't find one. Then one came up in a shop local to me. Went to play it. This is probably, I would say, 6-8 months later. Went to play it in the shop in a much quieter, relatively smaller room. Didn't like it. I was like, not my thing. So that was the okay.
That big of a difference.
Yeah. I think just because you're in a big these the rooms. It's a hall, isn't it? It's not a room.
Yeah.
Now they're fantastic cymbals.
There's weights and stuff like that as well, which you don't really worry about on the mid sort of range cymbals, on the high levels.
Yeah,
that could be a huge factor. There was a Carope that I played when I went to get my cake on. So I ordered in the medium thin low, the medium, and the Carope. And the Carope, I heard this Carope online. I was like, this is unbelievable. It sounds amazing. It's really low in pitch, really like rich as well. And it sounded like a B8 cymbal. It was really heavy. It just like had no crashability, and I was just like, that thing is horrendous. And then we flipped it over, and it was like 2,800 grams, which is like the heaviest in that range and stuff. And obviously, had I not known and sort of looked into weights and sort of stuff like that, I probably would have been like, ooh, that thing's So, but I think that's picking your first cymbal. Don't worry about how heavy it is.
I had the opposite experience with a Carope. Like I actually went to buy. I bought the light hats and the light ride at the same time, and I was pairing them together, and I was trying to decide if I was going to get the 14 hats or the 15 hats. Went with the 15, no regrets. But I just happened to I was in the shop, and I thought, all right, while I'm here, I'm just going to grab a couple of things off the shelf and put a crope on and started playing it. Literally in 2 minutes was like, I need to buy this because I absolutely love it. I just wasn't expecting it. And it's that 20 inches. It's not a ride. It's not a crash. Obviously, like with crope, that's kind of their thing. It's just a cymbal. And it's just kind of like you said, like this, like low, warm kind of, quiet, but I don't know, like really dark tone. And I was like, this is everything I want in this sort of a cymbal. So I just brought it home with the other two.
Do you know that the correct pronunciation is actually Kerapy? Do you know that?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Harry with all the drumming facts.
Paul Francis of previous of Zildjian, now of Royal Cymbal Company, says both are okay, but the official pronunciation is Kerapy.
Kerapy.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but you do sound less of a prat if you just say Carope.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to get out my
think about what I was going to say then, but yeah.
Yes, Stanton Moore ain't going to be saying Kerapy, is he? You know,
Kerapy,
he's going to be saying
Carope.
Yeah, exactly.
Just clear your voice, Stan. Forgive yourself.
Yeah. Bless him. What a guy.
But so, in terms of anyone out there that's kind of thinking about or upgrading or changing or updating or whatever, sources of information, guys, where you're going, I would just like shout out. Obviously, I've never bought anything from them, but Memphis Drum Shop, because they're in Memphis, they put loads of great videos out that you can get context of listening to cymbals.
Yeah, and they often include the weight as well, which I think is really helpful because you could watch 3 different videos of the same cymbal and they all sound completely different, and then you can get a rough idea of like, I tend to like the ones that are a little bit lighter or a little bit heavier or whatever. So.
And I think they also perhaps give you details on the stick that's being used. If it's a Vic
and the rest of the kit as well, the other cymbals that are used and the mics that's recorded and stuff.
So rather than just hearing it
natural.
Yeah, rather than just hearing a cymbal being hit, you get to hear it in the context of being played. And I definitely recommend, whether you're on your phone or on a laptop or whatever, headphones. Yeah. Just kind of really get yourself into the sound.
Definitely. And I would also suggest as well, sorry, Matt, just to cut across, but I would also suggest, like, look at what the people that you like and the sounds that you like and even the albums that you like. Try and do your due diligence and look at what those guys and girls are using, and then go to like a Memphis Drum Shop. Figure out what whoever it is from whatever band is using, and then go and check it out and hear that cymbal in isolation. Because you're hearing these things in mixes, and there's EQs, and certain frequencies are cut and so on. So yeah. Do that, try and look at what people are using, and it might be that you just like the crash cymbal from their setup, or you really like that person's hi-hats, and so on. So it's okay to have, there's the beauty about cymbals, and as you both sort of mentioned about, the old Zildjian that's just an 18-inch cymbal and the Carope stuff as well, is there's no right or wrong answer. I remember I'm sure we've all had it, but like explain to a student and like, put your 2 crash cymbals together, or have 2 rides or whatever. It doesn't have to be hi-hats, crash, ride, crash. Do whatever you want to do to follow the sound that you're into.
I think it's also
literally blew my student's mind the other day when I said, he was telling about like, the mid-tom gets missed out of a lot of fills in like the piece we were playing. I was like, you could take it off and put your ride cymbal there if you want. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, like he was like, why would you do that?
Because it gets missed out on.
I guess if that's all you've ever known, then that stuff's way out there.
That's why that mid-tom has to go on the line in the stave, because it was added after.
Yeah. Easy to rub out then, isn't
it? I'd also suggest, as I did to my student, go to cymbal manufacturers' websites. Once you know the kind of people, the kind of music you're into, or you know what kind of music you're going to be playing, what sound, because very often they might put stuff on there in terms of, this is best suited for funk or gospel or church music or rock or metal, or and you'll start to pick up on the terminology of it's really dry, it's got a really
Yeah.
good stick definition, it's got a really
brilliant
pingy
finish and all
bell,
that.
brilliant
Yeah.
finish.
You probably
It's
want
got
to
a
like
long
listen to the extremes, like
Yes,
something that's
yeah.
like really like with a lot of stick definition, and one that's like really washy, or
Yeah.
like one without a bell and one with a
Yeah.
massive bell. You know,
why are the
Listen to a
cymbals
A
light?
custom and then listen to a minor extra dry, and that will
yeah,
sort of bookend your
Yeah.
And
experience.
sometimes I think this, I'm not sure which site it is. I think it's Sabian. They will have like a little sound snippet of what the cymbal sounds like, or the little
Yes.
video of it. Or very often it'll link to their YouTube channel where they've just got
Yeah.
people hitting cymbals.
Tommen are really good for that. They've got loads of
Yeah.
really good samples of
Yeah.
whatever it is, and loads of like different scenarios. You know, like for example, like a crash, like soft crash, riding the
yeah.
crash, the bell of the crash, a big sort of crash. They've got a lot of,
yeah,
just to kind of give you a rough
Yeah.
idea.
The only other thing I would add, and Jamie, if you can kind of chime in as well after, but I think the last thing for me is, I'm not sure we've necessarily demonstrated it in our backstories tonight, but rather than going out and buying one cymbal because you want to change a cymbal or add a cymbal as a single item, don't go out and buy loads, but I would think longer term in terms of if you want to get cymbals that are going to match sonically, are you particularly going to go down the route of a particular model within a brand range? Or are you going to go out and buy a cymbal you've not really heard of, but it sounds good, but then you come a year later and, well, I can't find anything that matches that, and now my ride sounds great, but now the crash I bought a year ago doesn't go with it. Maybe have a longer term view of what the sound is, the soundscape that you want from all of your cymbals, rather than going, well, I can afford this one and it's great, but it's better than what I've got. But you might be in the same place again in 2 years' time when you've bought two more and gone, oh, I need to replace this again.
It's kind of like what Harry was saying earlier, like about his decision with the 15-inch hats and the 16-inch. Like, I think if you're looking to buy cymbals for the first time, going with something which you like the sound of, but is also like, I don't know, quite not safe, but something that you think is going to blend well with most musical situations, maybe.
Yeah.
Like if you go out and you buy your Crash of Doom, like as your first crash cymbal, that's probably not going to have the desired
nuance.
So yeah, I'd maybe start with some basics or some kind of
something
really
safe.
good safe bets, and then from there you can be like, oh, actually, like I like cymbals when they're this size, or I prefer this sort of like finish on them, or whatever, or I prefer the dry sound, where you can like get a bit more kind of specific with it, and get them as separate things as well. So
Try and think of it as an investment as well. They are a lot of money, and especially if you do spend that little bit extra, maybe get like a Zildjian K or a Istanbul or Gop or whatever, pair of hi-hats or ride or whatever, that ride is probably gonna actually last and suit pretty much mostly what unless you get like a Zildjian Mega Bell or whatever, that's probably not going to suit anything other than metal or whatever. But they are expensive, and if you even buy like one piece, think about like us, we bought like a cymbal a year at most, at a drum show or whatever, and it's like that's an investment to our sound, and obviously it's a bit different for us in terms of our craft and our sort of living, as it were, but that will serve you very, very well instead of a 7-piece drum kit with a 18-inch deep bass
and it's
drum.
nice as well to like
blah, blah.
you can get some cymbals which could almost double up as other things, like with what you've done with the hi-hats, Harry. Like you're like 16-inch hats, you've got a couple of different crashes like made into hi-hats, so you can think like, well, you haven't gone out and bought another pair of hi-hats. It's like you're just using cymbals you've already got, or like Matt was saying earlier about using one cymbal for jazz gigs. Like it's your crash, but it's also your ride, like kind of like the Croak cymbal. Or it's just, if you buy a larger cymbal, especially something that's 20 inches or above, you could probably, with most of the cymbals you can buy, you can do both. If you want to have it as a crash for a bit, do it, or just chuck it on as a ride.
I think a lot of modern cymbals, that seems to be the thing now. I think a lot of drummers want to get more out of
Yeah.
a cymbal. I think the kind of label sort of thing is kind of in a way disappearing. You see people with 18-inch crashes that they sort of ride on, or 20-inch crashes as a ride, or 20-inch rides that are crashes, and everything in between.
I mean,
So
is it the Sabian Legacies that they don't give them a name? They're just 18-inch or 20-inch,
Yeah.
or 20 and 22 with high bell and low
Yeah.
bell. That's it.
Yeah, that's what my Avidis ride is. It's just a
Mm.
22. I mean, I think it's just a 22 cymbal. I mean, it's obviously is
Yeah.
live, but
But I mean, ironically, that may have actually come from the fact that
in the original time.
I know the 10 years I was away from playing, the cymbals went through the roof in terms of cost. So actually now having cymbals that do I've got this crash and it's great, and I've got this ride and it does everything. I mean, I definitely shout out my raw bell because I have played jazz gigs with it, believe it or not, before I went down a different route. And I've played rock gigs with it, blues. I've played jazz with it. I've played light. You can't crash it, but it does as a ride cymbal. It's been great. But I think I just kind of show the time and kind of wrapping up, gents. But I think there's also, I think we've talked about Minor, we've talked about Istanbul, we've talked about Sabin and Zildjian. Definitely would like to shout out people like Bosphorus and Stag. That do these. I know I bought a set of Stag cymbals for my rental kit, which are great. And for honestly, maybe people out there who are looking at buying a kit that comes as a bundle with cymbals, I'd be of the opinion, well, maybe just look at buying the kit and then maybe invest a little bit more money on a slightly better set of cymbals that come as a package.
Yeah.
The Stag, I think they're EX. I bought them through Drum Bass. Ed will be shouting at the radio, or whatever he's listening to if I've said that wrong. They're either FX or EX set, albeit it's a 16-inch crash. I think the 18 would have been nicer. 14-inch hats and a 20-inch ride.
Yeah.
And honestly, they are a quality of cymbal that you're gonna affordable, but they aren't dustbin lids. They have got a tone and they've got musicality to them.
Dream as well are pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty
Dream
affordable.
cymbals. I've got some
nice
Dream
stuff.
hats,
Thin
which
stuff.
I think I bought at the show. 14-inch contact hats, which I use for my vintage blues gig and my jazz gigs. They were 139 quid.
Yeah, you just love the sound of them.
Yeah, they just sounded great. So it was. I'd happen to use them on a backline kit and go, he sounded all right.
Yeah, I remember playing them when we had a little jam. I was really surprised by them because, they don't look like they sound. If that makes sense.
Not at
that's
all.
not a dissonance.
Yeah.
They do generally look like a cheaper pair of hi hats.
Yeah,
they really don't sound like them at all. They sound really good. Really crisp and like I said, not bin lids. They're not really heavy.
When I play like a stepped hi hat, I can. The left foot is great. I can play 16th note grooves on them, and I'll just play 2 and 4 all night in a jazz gig with them on my foot, and they just sound great. So there's those out there. We've shouted out quite a few companies. Maybe we should tag them all in a post or something, guys, and set people off scurrying down a rabbit hole of.
What's our favourite cymbal then? Just to wrap up. What's your current favourite in your bag?
Current favourite.
What keeps getting picked up the most? If
mine,
sat
I'm
behind
still
the
in
kit.
a bit of a honeymoon phase with mine, but it's my paper thin crash, 20-inch, like picked up at the drum show. I still, every time I play it, I'm like, feels great, sounds great, looks great, it's perfect.
Ticks all the boxes.
I'm so happy with it. Like, as simple purchases go, this one's made me particularly happy. That's probably my favorite at the moment. Probably not all-time favorite, but certainly right now.
Yeah.
But you guys,
mine would have to be. I think it was the last one I purchased. My 21-inch Istanbul Agop Mel Lewis ride signature Mel Lewis. I've actually taken the rivets out of it. And I play it as my left. When I've got a bigger jazz gig, I play it as my left hand ride. But when I'm playing smaller gigs with my trio, I use it as my main ride. Practically, you could play it I think I've finally got to the point where I could play it as a one cymbal setup. It crashes nice. It's got great stick definition. I just took the rivets out of it just to make it a touch drier, without that ongoing sizzle. The bell's lovely on it. It's not overpowering. When I do play that trio, I do play with another Meinl 18-inch, that model I mentioned on the left. But that's probably, I love to dig into that. It doesn't get carried away with itself. I've got a 22-inch anniversary, 30th anniversary GOP, and that's a little heavier, bit bigger. And if you're not careful, unless you're in a big room with a PA, it can get a bit big for the room. But the 21-inch Mel Lewis is my favourite. If it wasn't my other ride, my other Sabian stuff, that would be the one I'd definitely pick at the minute. Yeah. Harry,
nice. Cool.
You've got to answer your own question now.
Yeah, I've got to answer my own question. I'd probably say, one of my latest additions, which is the 22-inch K-Con Centenople overhammered thin cymbal, thin ride.
It's got such a catchy name.
I know.
Rides off the tongue.
I just thought it was the overhammered ride. I didn't even realise until I bought it says thin overhammered ride. I was like, as if it needs a longer name, It is thin though. Surprisingly thin. It's the exact pitch that I've been looking for, just that low, sort of thunderous, kind of crashy sound. The bell cuts nicely, and it sort of washes the cymbal. It's got great stick definition. It kind of can get carried away a little bit, but it doesn't lose the stick, which is quite nice. The wash really kind of simmers nicely. It's almost like a bit of a drone sometimes, but it gets nice and sticky. And it's just, it is a very self-indulgent cymbal. It's like, this feels like the cymbal I've been looking for, Nice. And yeah, I love it. I haven't played it on everything. I kind of left it actually out for quite a while after I got it, and only played it a handful of times. But I've had it as a ride. I've had it as like a second ride crash, more so just as a crash actually the last couple of gigs, and it's felt really nice like that actually.
Cool, man. Cool.
And that's kind of that with the light ride as another light ride, and then overhammered. It's a wonderful setup. It's lovely. Yeah,
wicked.
It's very good. So there you go.
Thanks, guys. One for the geeks Cymbals tonight, I think. And if you're out there wondering about cymbals and maybe you're newish to drumming and or whatever, hopefully it's given you some insight. And maybe you've learnt loads of words or heard loads of words you're not sure what you. But drop us a DM.
Keropy being one.
Keropy. There we go.
But feel free to get in touch with us as well. We'll be more than happy to chat cymbals and answer any questions and advise and
always
and so on.
Definitely.
We clearly enjoy it.
Easy episode, wasn't it? When we were like, we're talk about cymbals this week. We're like, great.
No problem. We'll only do 45 minutes. Here we are at an hour 3, but never mind. Thanks, guys, for your input, and thanks for that was a great chat to talk about that stuff. And if anyone's out there, send us your comments or perspective on what's your favourite cymbal in your setup. How did you come to buy it? Why did you buy it? When did you buy it? Do you use it for different things than you expected? I think that'd be good for everyone to chip in. As I said at the beginning of the episode, at Count Us In Podcast on Instagram. Say a quick way to everyone on YouTube. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching on YouTube as well. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. And if you found this episode insightful and would like to show your appreciation, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Count Us In Podcast. I'm getting good at that now. Rattled that off quick, didn't I? That was good. But thanks very much for listening, everyone. Thanks for the comments. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Harry.
Awesome.
Nice one, guys.
A geeky one. Enjoyed it. Take care, fellas. Speak to you soon.
Catch you on the next one.
See you later.